You didn't wake up by accident. There's a reason behind that moment. In the silence of 3 a.m., something greater is trying to reach you. There is a reason you woke up at 3 lit in the morning, and it is not random. It is not accidental, and it is certainly not meaningless. You did not just lose sleep. Heaven interrupted your routine. When God interrupts your sleep, it is because He wants your attention without competition. During the day, your mind is crowded with noise, responsibilities, conversations, and distractions. But at 3 a.m., everything is quiet. The world is still. And in that stillness, God speaks with clarity. You must understand this. God is a God of purpose, not coincidence. If He allows your eyes to open at an unusual hour, it is because something within you needs alignment. It may be direction, it may be correction, or it may be preparation for what is coming next in your life. Many people ignore this moment. They turn over, grab their phone, or force themselves back to sleep, not realizing they just missed a divine appointment. There are moments in life that feel inconvenient, unexpected, and even frustrating, yet they carry a depth of meaning that most people overlook. Waking up suddenly at an unusual hour, especially around 3 in the morning, often feels like a disruption to your rest. But what if that interruption is not meant to disturb you, but to redirect you? Divine interruptions are not accidents. They are intentional moments where God steps into your routine to capture your full attention. During the day, your mind is divided among responsibilities, conversations, noise, and endless distractions. But in the quiet of the early morning, all of that fades away, leaving space for clarity, reflection, and connection. What feels like a break in your sleep may actually be an invitation into something deeper. God does not operate randomly. Everything He allows carries purpose, even when it doesn't immediately make sense to you. When you are awakened at a time when everything around you is still, it creates an environment where you are more sensitive, more aware, and more open. In that moment, you are not influenced by external pressures or expectations. You are simply present, and that presence is powerful because it positions you to hear what you might otherwise miss. Many people dismiss these interruptions, quickly trying to return to sleep, not realizing that they may be turning away from a moment designed specifically for them. But those who begin to recognize the value of these moments start to see a pattern. Clarity begins to increase. Direction becomes stronger, and a sense of peace replaces confusion. Sometimes these interruptions come because there is something within you that needs attention. It may be a thought you have been avoiding, a decision you have been delaying, or a burden you have been quietly carrying. In the stillness, these things rise to the surface, not to overwhelm you, but to be addressed. Other times, the interruption is not about what you need to release, but what you need to receive. Insight, wisdom, and ideas often come when the mind is no longer crowded. It is in these quiet, uninterrupted moments that solutions appear and purpose becomes clearer. When you begin to shift your perspective, you stop seeing these moments as disturbances and start recognizing them as opportunities. Instead of resisting them, you respond with intention. You pause, you reflect, you listen, and in doing so, you align yourself with something greater than your own routine. Divine interruptions are reminders that your life is not just guided by schedules and plans, but by a higher purpose that requires your attention. What feels like an inconvenience may actually be a turning point, a moment where direction is clarified and strength is renewed. There is a kind of clarity that cannot be found in noise, no matter how productive or busy that noise may seem. Most people move through their day surrounded by constant input, voices, notifications, opinions, responsibilities, and over time that noise begins to shape their thinking. It becomes difficult to distinguish between what is truly important and what is simply urgent. This is why silence is so powerful. Silence is not empty. It is a space where truth becomes easier to recognize. When everything around you becomes still, your mind begins to settle, your thoughts slow down, and what was once buried under distraction starts to rise to the surface. What you could not see clearly before begins to take form. When you find yourself awake in the early hours, especially at a time when the world is quiet, you are placed in a unique environment. There are no competing voices, no immediate demands, and no pressure to perform. It is in that stillness that you begin to hear differently. You notice thoughts that you ignored during the day, You become aware of feelings you pushed aside. And more importantly, you become sensitive to direction that does not come from external sources. Clarity is not something you chase. It is something that emerges when interference is removed. Silence removes that interference. Many people are uncomfortable with silence because it forces them to confront what they have been avoiding. Noise can be a form of escape, a way to stay occupied so that deeper questions never have to be answered. But growth requires honesty, and honesty often begins in quiet moments. When you allow yourself to sit in silence, you begin to process your life more accurately. You start to recognize patterns, understand your decisions, and see where adjustments are needed. This is where clarity begins to take shape, not in rushed thinking, but in deliberate reflection. Silence also creates the conditions for focus. When your mind is not scattered, it becomes easier to concentrate on what truly matters. Ideas connect more easily, solutions become more visible, and direction becomes more defined. What once felt confusing begins to make sense because you are no longer overwhelmed by competing thoughts. You are able to prioritize with confidence because your perspective is no longer clouded. The challenge is not that clarity is unavailable, it is that silence is often avoided. People fill every moment with activity, believing that movement equals progress, when in reality, constant movement without clarity leads to frustration. When you begin to value silence, you create space for understanding. You learn to pause instead of react, to listen instead of assume, and to reflect instead of rush. Clarity is not something that comes from doing more. It comes from hearing more accurately. And you can only hear accurately when the noise is removed. Silence is not a weakness or a lack of activity. It is a strategic space where your mind, your spirit, and your purpose come into alignment. There are moments in life when insight seems to arrive without effort, when answers come with unusual clarity, and ideas form with a depth you cannot fully explain. These are not random occurrences. They are often the result of positioning yourself in stillness. Quiet moments create the environment where what you could not force through effort begins to flow naturally. When the noise fades and your mind is no longer crowded, you become receptive. It is in that receptive state that what can be described as spiritual downloads take place. Impressions, ideas, direction, and understanding that feel beyond ordinary thinking. These moments do not come through striving. They come through stillness. During the day, your attention is divided. You are responding, reacting, solving, and managing. Your mind is active, but it is also occupied. In that state, even if insight tries to surface, it is often drowned out by the urgency of everything around you. But when you find yourself in a quiet moment, especially in the early hours, something shifts. Your thoughts slow down, your awareness sharpens, and your internal space opens. This is where deeper understanding begins to take shape. You start to connect ideas that once felt unrelated. Solutions that seemed complicated become simple. Direction that once felt unclear becomes precise. These spiritual downloads are not always dramatic. Sometimes they come as a simple thought that carries unusual weight. Other times they come as a sense of knowing, a strong conviction about a decision you need to make. They can appear as creative ideas, strategies, or even words that you did not plan but feel guided to express. What makes them different is not just their content, but their clarity. They arrive without confusion. They carry a sense of alignment that is difficult to ignore. However, many people miss these moments because they are not paying attention. They either rush past them or dismiss them as ordinary thoughts. But when you begin to recognize their value, you start to treat quiet moments differently. Instead of filling them with distractions, you protect them. You become intentional about listening, reflecting, and capturing what comes to you. You may write things down, sit with a thought longer, or simply allow it to develop without interruption. In doing so, you create a habit of receiving, not just thinking. It is important to understand that these moments are not about replacing action. They are about guiding it. What you receive in quiet moments often becomes the foundation for what you do in active moments. The clarity, ideas, and direction you gain shape your decisions, influence your priorities, and strengthen your confidence. Instead of moving based on pressure or confusion, you begin to move with intention and understanding. Key moments are not empty pauses in your day. They are opportunities for alignment and insight. When you learn to value them, you begin to experience a different level of clarity and direction in your life. What once felt uncertain becomes guided, and what once required struggle begins to flow with purpose. There are moments in life when everything around you slows down, and you are left alone with your thoughts, your emotions, and your reality. These moments are not empty. They're intentional spaces where alignment and release can take place. When you wake up in the quiet hours, especially without distraction, you are given an opportunity to come back into alignment with what truly matters. Throughout the day, it is easy to drift. Responsibilities, pressures, and external influences can gradually pull you away from your core values, your purpose, and your spiritual focus. Without realizing it, you begin to operate out of habit instead of intention. But in stillness, you are given a chance to realign. Alignment is about bringing your thoughts, your decisions, and your direction back into agreement with God's will. It is about correcting the subtle shifts that happen when life becomes overwhelming. In the quiet, you begin to recognize where you have been misaligned. You see where your focus has been scattered, where your priorities have been misplaced, and where your actions no longer reflect your purpose. This awareness is not meant to condemn you. It is meant to guide you. You cannot correct what you do not acknowledge, and silence creates a space for honest reflection. At the same time, these moments are not only about alignment, they are also about release. Many people carry burdens they were never meant to hold on to. Stress, fear, guilt, disappointment, and unspoken worries accumulate over time. During the day, these things are often buried under activity, but they do not disappear. They remain within you, affecting your peace, your decisions, and your energy. In quiet moments, these hidden weights begin to surface. This is not to overwhelm you, but to give you the opportunity to let them go. Release requires honesty. It requires you to stop pretending that everything is fine and to confront what you have been carrying. When you do, you create space within yourself. Space for peace, for clarity, and for renewed strength. What you release no longer controls you. What you let go of no longer weighs you down. And in that process, you begin to experience freedom. Not because your circumstances have changed immediately, but because your internal state has shifted. Doubt lessened and release work together. You cannot fully align yourself while holding on to unnecessary burdens, and you cannot truly release without understanding where you need to realign. These quiet moments become a reset point, a place where you are recalibrated. Instead of continuing forward with confusion or heaviness, you move with clarity and lightness. When you begin to value these moments, you stop seeing them as interruptions and start recognizing them as opportunities for transformation. You learn to pause, to reflect, and to respond with intention. In doing so, you position yourself to live not just reactively, but purposefully with a renewed sense of direction and peace. There are seasons in life when things feel unusual, uncomfortable, or even disruptive, yet they carry a deeper purpose that is not immediately visible. These moments are often part of a preparation process. When you find yourself being awakened, stretched, or pulled out of your normal routine, it may not be a disturbance, it may be development. Preparation for a greater assignment rarely feels convenient. It requires adjustment, discipline, and a willingness to grow beyond your current level of comfort. What you experience in these moments is not random pressure. It is intentional shaping. A greater assignment demands a greater version of you. It requires sharper awareness, stronger discipline, and deeper sensitivity. These qualities are not developed in ease. They are formed through intentional processes that challenge your privileged habits and thinking patterns. When you are awakened in quiet moments, especially at unusual hours, it can be a form of training. It teaches you to be responsive, not just reactive. It builds your ability to listen, to focus, and to engage with purpose rather than routine. What feels like an interruption is often an invitation into a higher level of responsibility. Many people desire greater purpose, influence, and impact, but few recognize the preparation required to sustain it. You cannot step into something significant with an unprepared mindset. Without preparation, opportunities can become overwhelming rather than empowering. This is why development often happens before visibility. The process shapes your character, aligns your thinking, and strengthens your capacity so that when the opportunity arrives, you are not just excited, you are ready. Preparation also involves refinement. There are areas within you that must be adjusted before you can handle what is ahead. It may be your mindset, your priorities, your habits, or even your level of commitment. In quiet, reflective moments, these areas become clear. You begin to see where growth is needed, where discipline must increase, and where distractions must be removed. This is not about perfection, it is about readiness. Every adjustment you make during this phase positions you for what is coming next. At the same time, preparation builds confidence, not the kind that comes from external validation, but the kind that is rooted in understanding and clarity. When you have been trained, when you have taken time to develop, you move differently. You are not easily shaken because you know you have been equipped. The quiet moments you once questioned become the foundation of your strength. They are the times when you gained insight, built resilience, and developed focus. What you must understand is that preparation often happens before you see the full picture. You may not know exactly what the assignment is, but that does not make the process any less important. Every moment of growth, every adjustment, and every act of discipline is contributing to something larger than what you can currently see. When you begin to trust the process, you stop resisting it. You embrace the development, knowing that it is shaping you for a purpose that requires your full capacity. Preparation is not punishment, it is positioning. It is the stage where you are being built into the person capable of carrying what is ahead. And when the time comes for you to step into that greater assignment, you will realize that what once felt like disruption was actually direction. Every moment you've heard about, those quiet awakenings, those interruptions, that stillness points to one truth. Your life is being guided with purpose. Nothing is wasted, not even the hours that seem inconvenient or unexplained. In those early moments, you are invited to align, to release, to receive, and to prepare for something greater than your current understanding. The question is not whether God is speaking. The question is whether you are willing to respond. What you do in those quiet hours can shape the direction of your entire life. So the next time you wake up at 3 a.m., don't ignore it. Don't dismiss it. Lean into it. Sit up, be still, pray, and listen with intention. Start treating those moments as divine appointments, not disturbances. If you respond consistently, you will begin to see clarity replace confusion and purpose replace uncertainty. Answer the call, because what you do in the quiet will echo in your future. Don't ignore the call. Your purpose is waiting in your response. What you do in the quiet today will shape the life you live tomorrow.